All right. Hello. Hello. I said I'm going to do my best to be serious. Generally considered a serious person. More grumpy or serious. But I'm also a very goofy person. Which is a side of me that a lot of people don't get a chance to see. I am a deep thinker. I am a person that considers a lot of nuance and processes a lot of detail. But I'm also goofy. I like just stuff that makes no sense. I'm both. I'm looking at the rest of my to-do list for today. We good. Let's get focused. What's going on? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever it is that you're watching this video, it is yes. It's me, BRENNON. Here with a very first episode or very first installment of a series I want to start that's really going to be more of just a vlog for me, themed around the idea of manhood and the ideas of masculinity and what that really means, what it should mean, what it has meant, what it currently means, who defines it, all of that good stuff. Today is, as I record this, because I don't care when it posts or when people see it. This is documentation for me as well as information for y'all or perspective for y'all. Today is June 14th, 2026, 12:17 p.m., just past noon. I went to Bedside Baptist today, watched church online. Just to give a little bit of an overview of where I currently am in my life, I am sitting in the living room of my dad's house. You see the beautiful purple walls that he inherited and never decided to paint over. We lost the ceiling fan, RIP. My brother, when he was here for Mother's Day last month, he tried to fix it because the fan isn't working, and he tried to do some rewiring, some faux handyman work. He shocked himself a couple times. He's like, yeah, it's not gonna get done. It's like, all right, thanks. So now we don't even have a light up there. It's sitting on the floor over this way. Counting the blessings. I'm at my dad's house. I've been living with my dad since 2024, January of 24. He's been here since January of 22. Right? Yes. Helped him move into this house. Leveraging my real estate license and connections at my real estate agency. A family friend who was also like a mentor to me, helping get things together so that he could purchase this house. My mindset was knowing that as he gets older and has since passed 70, it was going to be one of the better investments for the long term, for the family, as well as a place that he could rest at, just pay the bill every month and know that it's his. He can cut his grass. He can, you know, orient the junk that he brought with him wherever he wants, and it's just his house, as opposed to constantly dealing with landlord stuff, which he's done since his divorce in 2014. Same thing with my mom. Helped her out in the same way, with the same family friend. She got her condo in like a senior community in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. I think a few months before I left St. Louis to go out to LA. So I'm rambling, you know. I've got a script here, but I'm also trying to give context as to why anything that I say matters. Because I don't know when people are going to see this. You know, I might be super celebrity man and everybody knows my name, or I could die tomorrow and you just randomly find this video, you know, promoted into your algorithm for no reason. So why is what he's saying have any weight or any relevance? So I wanted to call this this series, or this this show, this vlog, whatever you want to call it. I wanted to. It's themed around the phrase that I've been hearing over the recent years as a man, like this premise, this starting phrase to a sentence that I would hear people say, particularly women, that would often be followed with ideas of what manhood looks like, ideas of how men should show up in the world, and how we should speak, how we should dress, how we should behave, how we should think, how we should move, how we should be as men. And the frustration that I had, which is the inspiration for much of what I do, frustration. The frustration I had was that a lot of the commentary around manhood often wasn't very flattering or very complimentary. Give me 1 second, I'm gonna get some water. Ugh. So yeah, like I said, it's Sunday morning. I didn't go to church today. Haven't done anything. I haven't been to the barber in, probably a month. Haven't done any trimming up or any checking up. I got neck beard going on. Haven't brushed the hair. Haven't done anything. I woke up. I watched the sermon, three-fourths attention span. I'm washing clothes right now. Got a little breakfast bar, Cliff Bar. This water. Kind of went through my morning routine. I'll do my Duolingo, trying to learn Spanish. This other brain game I play called Elevate, keeping those streaks going. Play a little chess. Look at my Bible app, try to keep that streak going, but also just be more intentional about really devoting that time to the Lord first thing in the morning. And then I do whatever I got to do for the rest of the day. In recent weeks and recent months, I have not had that routine or that thing to do, the primary thing to do beyond that morning routine, since I've not been driving. So I'll just give a little background about me. I'm staying with my dad, kind of work backwards. I'm staying with my dad because I'm in the process of getting a divorce. I moved in here in January of 24 after leaving Los Angeles. My wife and I were living in LA together from June of 2023 to January of 2024, at which point I felt it was too calamitous, that's a good word, too contentious, too divisive of a dynamic between us to stay in the same space. I never wanted to be in LA. I hate LA with a passion. And that was before I got out there. Actually living out there confirmed that hate. And then to also have the one person that I thought was someone I could lean on and build with begin to have a lot of tension and not be on the same page. I didn't know what to do. In hindsight, hell, could have found another space, or could have just, maybe slept in different rooms. I don't know. Maybe not. But I know that it was to a point where I was like, I got to get out of here. I was starting to have like physical symptoms of like stress. Breaking out on my skin, on my arms, pain in, my teeth and my lower back, not sleeping well, general irritability, like depression, a lot of negative symptoms. I was like, I just gotta go. And I thought to come home. So we separated, shipped the car, came home, moved in with my dad, and I've been here ever since. So my wife and I, to that point, had been married 6 years. 6 years. We moved to LA in an attempt to reconcile a previous separation, which wasn't an official separation, but it was my wife having lived in LA previously, doing travel nursing. She had went out there in 2021 by herself to get away from me, in pursuit of an acting career full-time, professionally, as well as doing travel nursing to supplement that pursuit. So we were having issues and tension then. The following year in 2022, she ended up getting hurt on the job, to the point where she hadn't worked for the years following that. So later in 2022, she came back to St. Louis. We reconciled, was doing a marriage counseling thing, trying to make it work. Had a good year together, probably the best year of our marriage, between the end of 22 and midway through 2023. Moved out to LA together to try to, deal with some of the issues stemming from the injuries, legally and physically, rehab and such surgeries. But by the end of 2023, it went back downhill, to the point where I was like, I gotta leave. So it's been a roller coaster of a marriage, and that's putting it very mildly. I'm in real time, I'm determining how much to divulge because there's another person involved, and My desire is not to slander or mischaracterize anyone or villainize anyone. It's just to share my I ain't gonna say my truth. I hate that phrase. It's just to share my perspective. That's it. So, throughout the past 2 years, because when I first came home, my mindset was divorce. It was not separation. It was like, we're done. Been on this roller coaster too long. Been trying to make it work. It's not working. I'm out. But a series of events happened from January of 24 to June of 26 that made me pause before eventually choosing the route of divorce. Time of reflection and reconsideration, but also it made me think about me, which is why I'm doing this this vlog. And again, I know I'm all over the place, but I'm laying the foundation. So one other detail that I think may be relevant from January of 2024 to now. I was literally looking to file for divorce the first few weeks after I got back to St. Louis, which was late January, early February. I think the week that I was planning on filing, I had a strong conviction to just pray, fast, give it over to the Lord, make some room to hear a different perspective, to not move on emotion, and to make sure it's really what I want to do. There's been, to my knowledge, from what's been communicated to me and from what I'm aware of, there's not been any infidelity. There's not been any violence, physical violence. It's a lot of verbal abuse, both directions, to be honest. A lot of things that should not have been said. But no laying of hands, no cheating. We're both professed Christians. So there's no like biblical grounds if you're going off of that standard for divorce. It's just been a lot of heartache, a lot of abandonments, emotionally, physically, a lot of missing each other. That's kind of the simplest way I can summarize it. And lack of prioritization. I'll just leave it at that. So I was fully ready to file for divorce when I got home to St. Louis, move in with my dad. The week I was prepared to file, I decided to fast. This was the second week of February. Started the fast, I want to say on Valentine's Day. Or maybe, of course, my dad is coming home. I knew he was going to come home. I was trying to get this recorded before my pops got here because I didn't want any interruptions. I'll probably find a different location and finish it, but we'll put a pin here. I think it was Valentine's Day. I started fasting. It's a Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, committed to this fast, making room for clarity and confirmation on whether or not to get divorced. And just getting closer to the Lord to see what else he had to say to me. And that Friday, 3 days after I started the fast, I had finished Ubering. I was doing Uber full time to supplement income. And there was a really big snow. Like, whole city's covered in snow. I'm driving in the snow for 10 hours. Finished my shift, and I'm South County, St. Louis, driving up to North County, St. Louis, where we live, all the way up the highway, Hadn't had any issues with the snow. I had a really good day driving, no complications, no danger. And I was like, you know what? I want to go to the mall real quick. I want to window shop. I'm not buying nothing. I just want to go to the mall. And I felt a conviction. I heard like a voice in the back of my head saying, just go home. You're done for the day. Be done. There's nothing at the mall. Don't worry about it. But I fought that conviction. I didn't listen. I said, no, I'm going to just go look. I'm going to just go look for a quick second. The mall is off another highway, Highway 64, that deviates from the route home. So I go to Highway 64. And a few minutes later, I end up spinning out on the highway. Lose control of the car. I guess I hit a patch of ice or whatever. Spin out and total my car. And we'll come back to that in a second.
All right. Slightly different orientation. Part 2 of episode 1. I am sitting in the middle of Mayfair Plaza parking lot, a old Shop and Save facility that's been closed down for some years to my left. Highway 367 to my right. Is it 367? 67? 367. And a couple of stores in the strip mall behind me with the Bank of America directly in front of me, and the Taco Bell over there, and BP right there, Quick Trip across the way. I left the house because my dad came home and I didn't really want to talk about what I wanted to talk about with him in earshot. So this is a very raw, authentic, real episode for me to kick off this series of contemplations and perspectives. As I was saying, I got into a car accident 3 days after I started fasting, primarily to figure out what to do with my marriage, but also just to generally hear from the Lord and get a better understanding of how He wanted me to move in 2024. So a few days after Valentine's Day, I spin out on the highway. Didn't have any issues driving in the snow the whole day, 10 hours. Decided to make a detour from going home, against the convictions and the little voice in my head telling me to just go home. I made a detour anyway, trying to do some window shopping at the mall. Spin out on the highway, totaled my car. Now, I had just spent over $1,000 getting this car shipped to St. Louis from LA. I didn't think about this from then to now. This is the first time this actually crossed my mind. I spent over $1,000 to get the car shipped home and then totaled it out within 2 weeks of being at home. But neither here nor there. That started a very tumultuous year for me, in the first year of being separated, choosing to separate from my wife. I kind of put the divorce on hold. I also canceled my fast, and that February, which is the month I was born, February 27th, that was a very rough February. It also was a February I turned 35 years old. 35 in American culture is a pretty significant marker. Ironically, when I was watching church this morning, one of the announcements was about the young adult ministry and a barbecue that they're trying to have, and I was like, you know what? I've aged out of being a young adult. which is crazy to think. I remember always anticipating becoming a young adult when I was a kid and wanting to be in that category, and now I've aged out. And when I thought about the age limit, or generally what is considered the age limit of a young adult in church circles, it's 35. So that was the year that I turned 35, 2024. And the rest of that year beyond that first accident was hell. It was one of the worst years of my life. Not only did I lose any opportunity or hope of reconciliation or intimacy by my own choosing, to be fair, but I had a lot of misfortunes. The rest of that year, I had 3 other car accidents. That's right. This car I'm sitting in currently, which was the replacement for the other car, I got this car in the end of March, right? The end of March 2024. I decided to return to the fast in April of 2024. And I actually executed the fast. I was like, God, please don't let me get in no accident while I'm doing this fast. Let me just have a clear indication of what I want to do. I came out of the fast thinking, you know what? I actually want to try to make this marriage work. I actually want to fight. I actually want to give it one last shot. And then 3 days into May, get another car accident. Whole left side of the car gets smacked while I'm on the highway, sitting in traffic. Just wipes out the left side. Didn't total it, but put me out of commission for another couple weeks. Now, again, I'm doing Uber full time in 2024. That was my full time work. So when I'm having these accidents, I'm not working, contributing to the chaos. Get past that. I get in a third accident where I just get tapped from behind. Well, no, that was the first accident when I got this car. I got tapped from behind maybe a week after getting this car. It wasn't significant, but it was jarring. It was like, you hit my car. A little bit of paint that's still kind of there on the bumper. So that was the second one. Then I got hit on the left side while I was sitting in traffic. That was the third one. And then I had a fourth one when I was sitting. I was parked across from a driveway near my great uncle's house, and the neighbor backed out of the driveway. I believe they were drunk, but they offered their insurance information and handled everything professionally, so I didn't put up too much of a fight. They backed up with their truck directly into the other side of my car, this car. 4 accidents in 1 year. Now, when I had that conviction to fight for the marriage coming out of that fast in April of 2024, part of that was, come on now, stuff flying in the car. Also trying to figure out what it was I was needing as opposed to what I'm doing. And this is kind of getting back to the premise of this entire ordeal. Much of manhood is premised historically and presently around what men do. What's our output? What is it that we can offer to the world? How is it that we can show up in ways that justifies us being considered men? It's action based. I'm not here to say that manhood should not be action based. What I am saying is that it should not primarily or solely be action based. That should be a large part of the formula, but shouldn't be the totality of what a man is. That's kind of the premise that I'm getting at here. So the end of 2024 into 2025 was kind of that confirmation. I was talking to my wife about things that I was feeling and really trying to identify what I was needing, because I really hadn't spent too much time figuring that out. I'd spent most of the marriage figuring out what I could do to try to fix and solve, and how to climb out of whatever hole I dug, and how to show up better, and how to perform better as a husband and as a man to earn love, to earn intimacy, to earn her satisfaction or her pleasure or her peace, her contentment. And very little time on what I was needing. And I was communicating what I was needing, don't get me wrong, but it was maybe subconsciously contingent on what I was doing. Okay, maybe I'll get these things if I do these things. If I do, then I'll get. So 2025, I did my own individual counseling, and kind of got some framework of like a way to share needs in the marriage while doing my best not to make it sound like an ultimatum. That was my desire, was like, I'm not trying to give you an ultimatum. However, this is what I'm needing if we want to make this marriage work. And at the same time, because my counselor was not, I don't know if he was a believer or not. But at the same time, I'm talking to, different pastors, different elders, different people in the faith. I'm a Christian. About, what the Bible says about marriage and how to navigate my unique set of circumstances and my unique dynamic with my wife. And many of them were like, well, yes, you have this standard of what a Christian marriage should look like and what God approves of in marriage, but although you have a good standard, what you're currently doing and how long you've currently been navigating this other space, this roller coaster that you've been on, also is not pleasing. It's not meeting that standard either. So either way, whether you move back to LA and y'all try to make things work and you endure and fight through and kind of repeat some of the old patterns, or whether you're in this current limbo space where you're still not getting favorable responses or commitments, you're not meeting that standard. So you're still going to have to make a decision. And that really helped me to make the ultimate decision towards the end of last year, which was, I'm not seeing sufficient prioritization or progress of the things that I'm needing from her. And I don't think our current situation is what God wants. Therefore, let me go ahead and file this paperwork, which is what ultimately convicted me to file for divorce in January of this year, 2 years removed from when I initially planned on filing. Long-winded I am, yes. So, with that background and with that foundation, throughout the past 2 years, as I was dealing with all these considerations, and I decided to go back to school to get my master's, which is also going to be a part of this documentation of like the journey to complete that program, and all of the other things I'm navigating with family considerations, parents getting older, siblings living in other states, and observing my community, dealing with church. A big through line from all of these different angles, all these different considerations, has been, what is manhood? What does it look like? What does it sound like? How is it supposed to show up? What are the expectations? Who sets the expectations? X, Y, Z. And a big component, I think I mentioned in the first section of this recording, this episode, was what I often hear. A big component is what I often hear from women, in passing, as well as from peers or close people. As a man, you should do this. As a man, you should do that. As a man, you should know this. As a man, you should show up like that. As a man, you should. As a man, you should. As a man, you should. From both men and women. This is the communication and culture in my era, in my generation, but primarily from women. And it got to the point where it's like, you know what? There aren't enough men with prominent voices that I respect, or who I feel have healthy balance of their perspectives, who are offering those perspectives on what a man should be, do, say, think, etc. So I said, you know what, this is a good lane for me to travel down, especially as I'm back in school, particularly for counseling. My friend who just called me, who I was, declining the call, I'll hit her back. Best friend for a couple years, or quite a few years. She actually is a licensed professional counselor, and throughout the years leading up to my separation and pursuit of divorce, she had been saying, you know what, you would be really good with counseling. Like, you have a good temperament, you have a good skill set, communication, empathy, XYZ. You should do mental health counseling. And I didn't see it. I didn't, I wasn't against it. It wasn't clicking for me. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do real estate, or I'm gonna do something with fitness or with athletics, or maybe try to get back into journalism, or have these other ventures. I have a lot of different ideas and a lot of different things I wanted to do, and I didn't see counseling in that vein. But once I got back to St. Louis, 2024, so much time to think, all the accidents with Uber, the different considerations with what I've been through in marriage, the things I've navigated with my wife, and things that she's navigated with her experiences throughout her childhood into adulthood, things I've observed and seen with my friend and with many other people, but particularly women. And then also, as I was doing Uber full time and just having different conversations with different men and hearing about their experiences, kind of confirming things that I've felt or thought or experienced, letting me know I'm not alone, but also recognizing that a lot of them felt alone. All of that gumbo eventually made the light bulb go off and say, you know what, counseling is for you. It's a professional degree, professional field. It's an opportunity to help people, and to establish yourself in a career that is going to be a need for the foreseeable future. Let me do it. I didn't want to go back to school. I didn't want to have to go through the rigors of another program, another formal education ordeal. But I didn't have no other motion in 2024. So I said, let me go back to school. So I started the mental health counseling program at a local university here in St. Louis, and I'm a year away from getting that degree and pursuing that license and starting as a professional. So this is also documentation of that journey, as well as my observations and considerations of manhood in general. It's a combination of both. So half hour into this video, let me go ahead and knock out the script that I actually said I wanted to get to. the question that really prompted this, which I've kind of alluded to throughout the first half hour, is who am I as a man? What is a man? What is a man? Does that apply to me? Am I feeling these expectations or these societal norms or roles? Or gotta lower this window down. There we go. Hopefully the wind is not picking up too much on the mic. But what is a man? Who is a man? Do I qualify? So I took some notes. I think it's just an interesting question, interesting consideration, especially again, considering the state of, I'll speak primarily to Black America because that's my context that I grew up in. That's what I know. But maybe America in general, or maybe the world in general. I don't know. Maybe. Particularly when it comes to how women see and perceive manhood versus what men, the standard that men are to establish for ourselves. So, I would say for me personally, the different roles that I play in life, the different considerations that I have. First, I'm Black. I think that's number one. I came out of the womb genetically male, right? And that's a whole other topic, right? Are you, in this era of like transgenderism, transsexualism, and exploring the nuances and the fluidity possibilities of identity. I was genetically born out of my mother's womb a man. I got all the parts and the components, and immediately after that I was a Black man. I am strongly of African descent. My brother actually got his results for he did a 23andMe, and I think it was like 30% Nigerian, which would explain all of this right here. And then like 17% Mali, which I wasn't expecting at all. I was hoping to get some Kenya in there. Kenya has been on my mind recently. Want to definitely get over there and visit at least, if not live. But no East African. It's Nigeria, Mali, and Cote d'Ivoire. Those are the top three. So I'm Black. There was also some Scotland and some other stuff in there because slave masters did what they did. But I'm Black. I'm a Black man who identifies as a Christian. I've accepted the terms and conditions of the gospel of Jesus. I put my faith in that gospel, and I live my life according to that standard, the Jesus' standard, his way. I do my best to try to meet that standard with my life. I'm a son, like I said, born from my mother's womb. So I'm a son, I'm a brother, 2 siblings. I'm currently a husband, maybe a few weeks or months away from that no longer being applicable, but currently I'm a husband, and I'm a member of the community. The community of Florissant, the community of North St. Louis County, Greater St. Louis Metro. I'm a Missourian and I am a United States citizen. So those communities are also applicable. Those are like ways to identify myself according to my geography and my biology. But I think manhood goes deeper than that. Even as I sit in this parking lot and the police going that way, I was like, please don't come over here. And I don't have no issue with the police. I just know Sometimes they be policing. I think just culturally it goes deeper than just those descriptions. Manhood, like I said, is very much action based historically. That's how a lot of people perceive it and understand it. So as far as employment goes or work, I've not held a steady job beyond 2 years, unless you include Uber. But 2 consecutive years, no. Uber's been a gap filler in many ways. But I've consistently, from the age of 22, 23 years old when I graduated college to present, have had some job, some position where I start and stop generally within a year, and at the most within 2 years, nothing beyond 2 years. So I have been a worker, not been a consistent worker, which admittedly contributed negatively in many ways to my marriage, in a poor way, and I take ownership of that. But I'm a hard worker. When I am working, I'm working hard, trying to, have a high standard of what my output is. Sometimes just lose interest. If it's a job I don't feel is fulfilling to me or helpful to the community or the people that I'm serving, if it's just like an ancillary job that's not like directly making people's lives better, I can lose interest. But in the meantime, when I'm off work, finding myself as that community member I was mentioning, involved in the community, finding ways to stay serving has been a challenge as well. But as I reflect back, I think a lot of that has to do with just general instability. When you don't have a consistent routine and schedule that you can build your life around, it's difficult to do so. Not saying you can't. A lot of people are a lot more flexible and fluid than I am with their routines and their day to day. I'm a lot more rigid. But for me, I've realized that I need to have my 9 to 5 kind of orientation of just what my work schedule is, and then I need to build around that. Am I going to the Boys and Girls Club? Am I going to the YMCA? Am I going to the community events? Am I going here or there? Am I serving at my church? Am I, doing those things around that foundational work routine? So that's a consideration for me. It's like a man, like it's kind of different. I think I do think in this current space that it's a challenge for most men. I think most men who don't have career or consistency with their one job and one schedule and one routine, it's challenging to build out from that into other areas of manhood or other areas of growth generally as a person. What if you're working a second shift, in the evenings, and anything you want to do with children in terms of service or support happens in the afternoon and the evening and you're at work? That's a consideration. What if you're not connected to any kind of faith community? How do you build community? How do you maintain connection with others and find a way to here comes the police. How do you find ways to continue to grow and to learn and to be able to lean on somebody else, or to be leaned on by people, to be a source of support for others? Outside of that, what other community organizations or groups are you a part of to where you're maintaining those connections? All of these things are considerations of manhood, and so as I mentioned, work could be a impediment for that growth and maturation of manhood. For me personally, I mentioned divorce. That's been, the marriage itself, along with the process of divorce, has been a big impediment for me when it comes to church, when it comes to family connections, when it comes to friendships, trying to find mutual friend couples. Hasn't been successful. And in many other aspects of life, that consideration of tending to my marriage and now trying to, finalize a divorce has been a huge weight, just to call it what it is, from those other aspects or those other considerations of improving and growing as a man. My degree, my secondary degree, and my master's, trying to get this counseling degree. That's another consideration. Like, I very easily could have just got a regular 9-to-5, and like I was working at Citibank before I went out to LA. Late 2022, early 2023. I gave that job up, which had great stability, great benefits, upward mobility. I was in a new department that was looking for leaders and people who wanted to, step into supervisory roles, building, good culture and good support. I left that job to go to LA. I very easily could find another job like that, or go back to that job and build up and just grow a career from that and let work be work, and find my enjoyment and my fulfillment and my pleasure in other ways, like a lot of men do. But I decided to go back to school, so that's a different consideration. Now it's a lot of things I've put on the back burner in terms of pleasure and enjoyment and growth, to do this 3-year bid. Another consideration is, so towards the end of this school year, for this spring semester of 2026, I ended up, as I sit in this car with the police to my left, I ended up having my license suspended. Me, my parents, my mom and my dad were on the way to Colorado to visit my brother in Colorado Springs for Thanksgiving in November of last year, 2025. On the way to Colorado, we get stopped. I get stopped, pulled over. I was driving, and I get a speeding ticket in Kansas. They say I'm going like an 85 and a 75, which I wasn't. I disagree with, but that's what they said. They issued me the ticket. My dad offers to pay the ticket, trying to help me out, trying to look out. Prideful Mr. Brennan said, no, don't worry about it, I got it, with the full intention of not paying the ticket, which I didn't do. And so fast forward to April of this year, which led up to a very contentious and very tumultuous end of my spring semester. I get a letter in the mail from St. Louis County saying that my license was being suspended for that unpaid ticket, missing a court date, blah, blah, blah. I try to log into the Uber app, which I was still doing Uber full time, and Uber lets me know that, yeah, you got some issues with that driver's license showing up on your background check, so you're not going to be driving for us. They would not let me log into the app. So that suspended license, another contributing factor. We talk about work, we talk about consistency. That interrupted, that suspended license interrupted that consistency, and it also interrupted the aforementioned master's program and making sure that that's done correctly. So all of that was swirling about during the early portion of this year for me. As I'm trying to finish the semester, I'm doing my practicum, which is like a mini internship, having issues with that site and getting those things done, which took attention away from the other 2 classes that I was taking. Throw this suspended license in there, throw in the divorce proceedings in there, and then complications with filling out that paperwork. And by the end of this spring semester, I finished my practicum, but I did not adequately finish the other 2 classes. I failed the other 2 classes. So with it being June now, I should be taking summer classes for this program. I am not, because I've been kicked out of the program. For failing those classes, I had to write a letter to reapply to be readmitted to the program, which I have been accepted back. No stress, no worries. I'm still working through that process of talking to the right parties and showing the right amount of remorse. And I will be back in the program in the fall. I will have to take these summer classes next summer, even though I'm supposed to be graduating next spring. They communicated to me that I'll be able to graduate in the spring. I just won't actually get my diploma until the fall, my degree until the fall, after I've completed those summer classes. Interesting complication, but who am I to determine something different? I was the one that got the F's. So all of that goes into the gumbo. I mentioned my living arrangement with my dad. I've been very fortunate to have the gracious parents and involved parents that I had. I mentioned that they are living in 2 different places. They have divorced. They have 2 different houses and 2 different lives now. Their divorce actually occurred the year that I started dating my wife, in 2014. So I moved out of the family home in 2014, January of 2014, into my first apartment that I had for myself. And by August of 2014, from thinking I was going to be able to pay bills working retail at the mall, I got evicted from that first apartment. And in that 8-month span, my parents had already separated. The family home as I knew it, that I grew up in for 20 years, was gone. And now was living with my dad for the first time in 2014. So this is kind of a revisiting of that humility, of that humiliation, of that feeling of inadequacy, and that it's a revisiting of those feelings of failure, those feelings of wasted time and making poor decisions. It's a revisiting of all of that stuff. And that's pretty much what these past 2 years have been, is a lot of those same feelings magnified, because not only was it I got evicted from my apartment because I wasn't making enough money, or I was spending my money poorly, and I'm 24, 25. It's not just that, but now it's these cars are like driving right in front of my car when there's so much room. I don't know why, and the police is right there. I don't know what's going on. But it's not just those considerations and those feelings. Now it's magnified to, no, I'm leaving another city. An apartment I was living in another city, with a woman I made vows with to be my wife and for me to be her husband. I'm leaving that and coming back to my home city to live with my dad at 37, as opposed to 25. So it's a lot more intense feelings as a man of inadequacy and of humiliation and of failing on multiple fronts, and on wasting time, even more time, and reflecting on a lot of decisions that I felt were poor decisions, or wondering, like, what if I had done this, or should I have done that? And along with how I felt in the marriage, the feelings of, am I only as valuable as what I do or what I put out to the world or to my wife? Wrestling with all of that over the past 2 years. So when it comes to the idea of what manhood is or what it should be, I want to explore like all of that for me personally. The reality of things versus the ideality, like ideally what things should be for men, or how it should look for men, but also for society in general, like just exploring different perspectives, different studies, different research, as a Christian, what scripture says about manhood, and also just from the common folk, like different perspectives from friends and family and men in the community. I'm going to explore a lot of that in the weeks and the months and maybe the years to come, and really just kind of dive in. I'm definitely going to do a better job of making this more concise, more brief, more palatable, so you can understand and grasp what it is I'm trying to communicate. But I'm just in this first one, I'm just kind of freestyling and giving you a lot of foundational stuff of where I'm coming from and why this is something significant for me to do. So who do I want to be as a man? Some of the considerations I wrote were, I want to be a better believer. That win. I want to be a more faithful follower of Jesus, not just in my personal life outside of the public eye, but also in the public eye. I want people to be able to legitimately, genuinely see me, or see Jesus, to see God, and see to be inspired and see a light of faithfulness when they see my life, and when they hear me speak, or when they see me make certain decisions. I want to be a better family member. I want to be a better son. I want to be a better brother. If God sees fit for me to remain married, I want to be a better husband. Or if I'm supposed to be with another woman in the future, a better husband for her. I want to be a better community leader. Like I said, establishing myself, getting that oxygen mask, like on a plane. If a plane is having turbulence or whatever, and they drop the oxygen mask, I want to be able to establish myself first and make sure I got good oxygen first, before I try to help others, before I try to show up well for others. So I'm in the process of doing that with school. I'm trying to find another job to account for what I'm missing out on with Uber. It's been a rough month in that way. And I'm trying to establish some foundational consistency and reliability financially and time-wise, to be able to build out to helping the community by way of my church, by way of other organizations and other events. So I definitely want to be better there. And the primary reason, I mentioned the primary reason I'm going into mental health counseling, but I also want to, as I've been in the program and I've just been processing through who I want to work with primarily, I also want to be a source of healing, or a contributor to healing for my people, for black people in general, but particularly for black men, which is another inspiration for this podcast. I want to be able to hold space, have these healthy kind of conversations and considerations, give me an opportunity to reflect, to think, to process, to find some better direction, and contribute to them growing and contribute to them healing. And then also, I want to, like I mentioned, be established in my career. I think getting that foundation and that rooting, whether in counseling or some other professional realm, will help me greatly with all the other things that I'm considering. In this country, that's just, it is what it is. Like, you gotta have your paper right if you want to do pretty much anything else as a man. That's one thing. That's one societal norm that I can't really argue with. As much as I don't care about money, and I'm not somebody that's like anxious for money or a big fan of money, I've definitely learned over the years the necessity of it and the importance of it as a man, to be able to establish yourself so that you can, from that foundation, do things for anything else, whether it's personal pleasure or community service. Ideally, I want to be in a situation where I'm loved. I have a loving family, loving children, and I'm able to embrace and offer that love, but also receive that love from those people. I like a nice little living arrangement, above average, ideally, but if God asks for me to suffer in the slums, I'm working on, accepting that lot in life. I want to be able to have an impact on future generations, like I mentioned, of men and of people in general. I've long had a conviction that God has for me to have a platform of some kind. I really never been sure of what it is or what it's supposed to be. I was hoping it would be like football and I'd be a pro football player and I could just do interviews and post game or whatever, kind of speak from that place. But that time has passed and that opportunity was very, very, very slim. So maybe it's this. I don't know. Maybe it's something I haven't even identified yet. But, ideally being able to speak to a large number of people and influence a large number of people for the better. And I have other podcast ventures and other platforms that I want to get off the ground. It might be one of those. I don't know. But just other passion projects, things that I'd like to work on and really contribute to. And if not those platforms, just to have an authoritative voice that matters, to be able to contend against unhealthy ideas, unhealthy thoughts and patterns, and really be respected in whatever field I'm in, to contribute to improvement, contribute to growth. So I'll close with saying, or asking the question, which I'll probably get into in the next episode. Something I've said or mentioned a few times in this one. Who defines manhood? Is that something that I personally define? If you're watching videos beyond this one that I make, are you going to build your definition of manhood off of mine? Do I become the authority based on whatever research or whatever information I compile together? Compile together. Do I become the authority on manhood? Is there another man or another group of men or another organization that defines manhood? Is it defined by women and what their expectations are and their experiences are? Is it defined, by institution or by individual? Is it defined by God? Is it defined? Who defines manhood? So that's something I kind of want to touch on the next time I speak. I promise I'll be a lot more direct, a lot more succinct, and it'll make a little bit more sense. It'll be less jumping around. But like I said throughout, I also want to incorporate my personal experiences and developments that I've kind of spoken on here throughout the objective presentation of things. So there's going to be kind of two sides future episodes. Like, this is what the information says, this is what the research says, this is what these perspectives say, and then also this is what I'm navigating, this is what I'm dealing with, this is how I see it. But yeah, I think it'll be a good way for me to stay engaged with content creation. I took a break from sports this year, which it's also somewhat lightly but also pretty significantly contributed to my frustration this spring. I said, you know what, I'm not going to watch any football this year. I'm going to put football on the back burner, and I'm going to focus all my attention on school and on these other things. I'm a Raiders fan. As soon as I decide make this decision, not only do I face a lot of disappointment from my fantasy football leagues that I've run for over a decade, but my Raiders decide to get the number 1 overall pick, and their offseason looks great. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the best offseason I've seen from any team I've been a fan of since I've been a football fan. I was an Eagles fan with McNabb and T.O. in that era, Andy Reid. I was a Rams fan, you know, when I was in college, and they had Sam Bradford and Steven Jackson and pretty much nothing else, Chris Long. And then they left and abandoned St. Louis, and I said, F y'all. Now I'm going to be a Raiders fan, 2015 to now. Never seen an offseason like this one. But it's only after I said, I'm not going to pay any attention, I'm not going to watch, I'm not going to keep up. Of course, people inform me and tell me, like, oh, your team's doing great. It's like, yeah, of course, when I committed to not enjoying it. But I didn't stop there. I said, you know what, I'm going to extend this football fast to other sports. I'm not going to watch anything else. I'm also a tennis fan. Who decides to come out of retirement when I say I'm going to not watch any more tennis? The woman who actually contributed to me starting to play tennis in the first place. That's right, Serena Williams. She comes out of retirement. I'm still paying off debts from very irresponsible purchases that I made in 2022. Watching her final matches in New York at the U.S. Open. Still paying them debts off. Actually, I've got those debts in debt reconciliation, consolidation plan. So yeah, it got that bad. And now she says she wants to come back. Oh yeah, so your last matches, they really didn't matter because they weren't really your last matches. I digress. And then I stopped watching basketball too. I didn't watch the NBA Finals, which wrapped up yesterday. Which I really don't watch the regular season to begin with because my team has always been trash. So much so that not only have they made some substantial trades after I said I'm not going to watch them anymore, they also got the number 1 overall pick, the Washington Wizards. Yep. So they're in line to get the top pick in the draft, as well as Trae Young, who said he wants to be there. Super encouraging. And Anthony Davis, which may or may not work in our favor, along with a young cast of other budding stars. They also look very promising in the years to come. All of this after I said I'm not going to watch any of these sports. So who knows? You know, maybe that's God's way of letting me know, or challenging me to see if I'm a really hold fast to this fast, or to kind of, you know, encourage me that he's got something better for me in the future. In the meantime, a lot of talking. I'll kind of speak on some of these other notes that I took later because I know I'm over an hour. But about to go ahead to my mom's house, spend some time with her, enjoy this beautiful weather, walk around, and continue to try to grow as a man. Maybe come up with some witty catchphrase to end future episodes to encourage you as well, brother, to grow as a man. I hope y'all have a beautiful day, whatever day it is that you watch this. Stay encouraged, stay hopeful. No man is an island. You know, if you need help, if you need support, reach out to somebody, another brother, a professional, a parent, an elder, a peer, somebody, and let them know what you're dealing with, how you're feeling. Don't try to do this life thing on your own. We're not designed for that. And I will talk to y'all maybe within the next week. I'm trying to keep this thing going. Love, peace.